Good day. My name is David Wild, and this is part one of a four-part lecture on Chapter 5 on Globalization from Connect Master Management 2.0. By the end of this four-part lecture, you will be able to evaluate the opportunities and risk to companies entering into global markets, to describe the factors that impact the international business environment, to explain the international activities companies undertake as they expand their business. You'll be able to evaluate the most effective way for a firm to expand overseas, to describe how worldwide events impact organization success in the global environment. You'll be able to recognize the impact of culture on doing business in a global environment, and to explain how to manage across different cultures. You'll be able to explain Hofstede's cultural dimensions and to identify the functions and goals of the global human resource management team. You'll be able to explain the different approaches to global human resource management, and finally be able to analyze an organization's opportunities and challenges when engaging in international activities. So at the outset, there's a fundamental question of why an organization should go global. Globalization is defined as the increased interaction and integration of economic, political, technological, and sociocultural systems across different geographic regions. Now, Table 1 from your text, which you see part of which copied onto the slide in front of you, talks about the pros and cons of globalization. Let's first look at the pros of globalization. First, globalization promotes economic growth worldwide. It creates jobs in poorer countries. It provides poorer countries with an infusion of capital and technology. It promotes peace and stability because countries now have a stake in other countries. Globalization helps organizations learn more about different cultures. It gives more access to information for countries that have very little in common. It makes people, and therefore the labor force, more mobile. Globalization helps to create a worldwide market. It lowers production cost. And finally, overall, globalization lowers prices for consumers. Now, on the flip side, we have to look at the cons of globalization. First, globalization does increase the gap between rich and poor countries, and there is job loss in developed countries as production moves to developing countries. Next, companies in developed countries threaten workers with reduced wages or send their jobs overseas. Fourth, large multinational companies can do business in less tax countries to avoid paying taxes in their home countries. There are less regulations in developing countries, and this could mean more worker abuse. There have been instances where there has been environmental negligence and ecological damage. Globalization has also been fraught with a lack of technology and patent security. There has been increasing communicable diseases due to worldwide travel, and multinational corporations are now influencing political processes. And finally, a last con of globalization is that globalization could lead to human trafficking and the exploitation of labor. The main drivers of globalization have been international trade pacts and technology. Governmental policies around the world have increased the movement of money, goods, and people, which has led to the creation of a global market where economic and financial factors of one country directly affect another. So, in summary, I'm talking about why to go global. Going global allows an organization to compete by taking advantage of lower cost resources while looking for new markets, partnerships, and manufacturing economies of scale for its products and services. The drawbacks to globalization include the elimination of a large number of blue-collar jobs in the United States that went to other, lower-cost countries, the avoidance of paying taxes by large multinational companies by doing business in less tax countries, a possible increase in worker abuse in other countries due to there being fewer regulations, and finally, the increasing wealth gap between rich and poor countries. So now let's turn to the international environment. It is important to understand a few terms critical to doing business abroad. The home country is the country in which the parent organization is currently registered or headquartered, and the host country is the country in which an organization operates a manufacturing facility or is conducting other business activities, such as sales or marketing. The parent organization may send managers and/or employees from the home country who are familiar with their practices and processes to set up and run these operations in the host country. These individuals are called expatriates or expats. Or, instead of sending expatriates, organizations could send individuals from other countries within the region who are currently operating or managing other facilities for the parent organization. These managers are called third country nationals. So now let's take a look at the major players when it comes to the international environment. Although technology has made access to the international environment much more realistic for smaller businesses and public institutions from both established and developing countries, there are still three major groups that engage in most of the international activity, and Figure 1 looks at these three major types of global business organizations. First, there are multinational corporations, known by the acronym MNCs. These multinational corporations build facilities and sell products in a number of different countries. Next, there are multinational enterprises, or MNEs. These multinational enterprises sell their services in a number of different countries. Finally, the third major player are what is known as non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. These are nonprofit organizations that function independently of any government and serve the world's population. Examples of NGOs are organizations such as the American Red Cross, Greenpeace, and Doctors Without Borders. Now, let's talk about analyzing the international environment. This is what is known as Peddle Analysis, P-E-S-T-L-E, Peddle Analysis. In order for a company to go through this decision-making process successfully without any pitfalls, they must be aware of the political, economic, sociocultural, technological, legal, and environmental factors that exist in a particular country. This strategy is referred to as Peddle Analysis, and it is an assessment that organizations must conduct before they take the plunge into the international business environment. Now, first let's take a look at political factors. The political analysis a firm must conduct involves assessing the political risk of the country in which it chooses to operate. Political risk are governmental policy actions that impact the profitability of the firm. Some common political risk factors are shown in Table 2 on your screen, which is taken from the textbook. Some of these common political risk factors include nationalization, expropriation, communication barriers, intellectual property or technology theft, discriminatory laws against foreign firms, obstacles to removing profits or equity from other countries, election cycles frequently bringing about violence and radical change, the government frequently altering corporate policies for foreign firms, frequent terrorist attacks, and the fact that there would be more of a dictatorship versus a republic form of government. In terms of economic factors, just as with political risk, a country's level of business development is directly related to its economic stability. A country's ability to meet all of its financial obligations is one aspect to consider when viewing economic development. Another dimension of economic risk is determining the impact of factors such as government policies, exchange rates, interest and inflation rates, labor cost and unemployment, and other economic events that impact a company's performance. The sociocultural environment consists of the values, attitudes, and beliefs that shape the behavior and preferences of a particular population. Knowing these social and cultural customs not only helps the organization understand what is socially and culturally acceptable when doing business in another country, but it also prevents missteps that always seem to occur due to cultural ignorance. Technological factors. As companies make strategic plans to enter into a foreign market as partners, sellers, or manufacturers, understanding that country's technological environment is vital to their success. As we have seen domestically, technology can catapult an organization to success, such as with Amazon, or destroy it, such as was the case with Sears. Companies that do not keep up with technological trends will struggle and ultimately fail, such as Blockbuster, while those that do keep up with the trends will not only survive, but thrive, such as Netflix. Legal and regulatory factors. The legal and regulatory environment encompasses the laws and regulations that are put forth by the home country, the host country, and the international community. Some of these legal factors include data protection, patent protection, regulatory obligations, labor laws, antitrust protection, and safety standards. In fact, a less restrictive legal and regulatory environment is one reason, along with lower labor costs, that companies seek to locate their operations in other countries. Finally, we have environmental or ecological factors. It is important to evaluate the ecological and geographic characteristics and factors of the country where you are planning to conduct business. For example, the location of the manufacturing center's proximity to its raw material supply, to its labor supply, or to markets will impact the need and extent of transportation. Or, the host country's infrastructure can also impact the availability of power, water, and energy. Suppliers, distributors, and other service personnel can also be influenced by environmental factors. In addition, locating facilities in a country that consistently faces natural disasters, such as hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, or earthquakes, is always a risk, albeit small, that an unprecedented catastrophe may occur and impact operations and profitability. So, in summary, in talking about the international environment, before it can consider expanding its business beyond national borders, an organization needs to understand the international environment in which it seeks to operate. Organizations need to conduct a thorough Peddle Analysis, Pestle, which looks at the political, economic, sociocultural, technological, legal, and environmental or ecological factors within the international country they have identified as a potential target for global expansion. And that ends part one of our four-part lecture on globalization.